but it's actually programmed to program you. Hi, I'm Nat. Today I want to talk about the metaverse because there is one danger that I don't see many people speaking about, but it might affect all of us at some point. So what is the metaverse? The metaverse is not just one thing, it's a concept, kind of like the internet. So there's not just one metaverse, there's multiple metaverses, especially at the moment. Most of the ones that a lot of people will be familiar with are within games like Roblox, World of Warcraft, Minecraft. It's all based upon avatars or representations of yourself, but you can hear the other people speaking. It's a virtual world, and it has been explained as the next phase of the internet and of human connectivity. Within the metaverse and with your avatar, you can have anything you want, create anything you want. It's basically up to your imagination and whatever the developers let you do. So you don't have to look like yourself. The people you interact with there could look like fairies or dragons or monsters or like themselves. But you'll never really know what the other person looks like unless you meet them in the real world. And in these first initial stages, it might look like it's just going to be a thing for younger people or teenagers or people that want to play games all day. But there's a lot of big tech companies, all of these, which have actually started to invest a lot of money, time, research, and effort, because within the metaverse, you can have a doctor's consult, or you can have a lesson, or you can have a meeting. One of the biggest companies that has invested $100 billion into its metaverse is Facebook. It even renamed its whole company to Meta Platforms. They've already started to show us how they plan to expand upon the small universe they've already built. Even though these avatars might look pretty silly right now, they have no legs, they move very clunky. There's a lot of research going into how to make a full body, for example, and how to make realistic movements. And it's not so far off to say that soon your avatar might look and sound and feel like you actually do, or like whatever you want it to look like, but it will seem real enough to other people within the metaverse. I know the metaverse sounds like an alien concept or something that most people wouldn't want to adopt, but there's a reason why all of these big tech platforms, especially Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, want to invest so much into them, because there's more potential there than most people think about when they think about being immersed in a virtual world. Whoever wins the whole metaverse platform wars that might start happening soon between all of these big tech companies will be the one that dominates most of the users and how they interact online. Since a lot of them think that this is the next version of the internet, whoever has the dominion of this section of the internet will have basically unlimited power and unlimited digital governance. One of the biggest integrations is Microsoft. Microsoft has decided to move a lot of its Teams platform, which is usually used for boring meetings, and it's a platform pretty much hated by anyone that has to interact with it, into the metaverse. And not just any metaverse, but Meta's or Facebook's metaverse. This means that soon your boss could tell you, no, it's not in person and it's not over Zoom or not over Teams. We're going to meet up in the virtual world. So you'll see your colleagues sitting there, but they're not really there. It's all within this virtual space. But you can talk to them and interact with them, and it could even seem pretty realistic to the point that you forget that you're within this virtual world. After your meeting, stores like Walmart and Gucci have also decided to invest in the metaverse, mostly as a branding platform. But how do you buy things in the metaverse? Right now we have a few examples, like with Roblox. They have their own proprietary monetary system called Robux. So what will Facebook have? There's not really a name for whatever their coin will be yet, but you might have to buy it from Facebook and then store your money there, or have your own digital wallet within the Meta platform metaverse. This means that if you decide to transfer quite a bit of your money or divide it half and half since you're spending so much time in the metaverse, your money will be there and you might not be able to get it out. Since there are clubs and bars and other spaces in which you can interact with other users in the metaverse, after your meeting, you might be invited out for drinks. It's not actually drinks, but there's nightclubs in the metaverse. There's even artists that give concerts to users within the metaverse with their own avatar doing impossible things that they couldn't do in the real world. And this is all very attractive and convenient. After your drinks and your meeting, you could go walk around wherever in the world you want to. National Geographic has a whole space within the metaverse where it can transport you anywhere in the world, and you can tour around and go to places that you might not be able to access usually. It has so many attractive possibilities and so many attractive conveniences that a lot of people are forgetting to really think about the implications of living most of our life, not just online, but in a virtual world. But it's still owned and it's still a platform within a big tech company, which, as we know, are not the most desirable entities that we want having a lot of our time and a lot of our money. So I mostly want to focus on Meta platforms and their metaverse, or Facebook and Zuckerberg, because a lot of people are familiar with Facebook, Zuckerberg, and everything that has happened within the past 3 years and before that in that platform. It also has the biggest user base of all social media platforms to date. With 2.9 billion monthly active users, it owns Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook Messenger, which means their users already rely on a lot of its platforms and products to live their daily lives. If it's not communicating with family members across the globe or right next door, it's posting photos on Instagram or using Instagram and Facebook for their own businesses. Facebook or Meta platforms metaverse, because it will most likely be the one that dominates, since it already has such a big percentage of the market share within their own platforms. So this money that you've put into the metaverse platform probably stays there. When you buy Roblox's Robux, it's very difficult to get them back out if you opt out or if for some reason you get canceled out of the platform. Facebook is able to force its users to adhere to their terms and conditions. So when you do or say something that Facebook is not completely okay with, you will most likely either get banned or get a warning or get your post taken down. But then what happens if the same happens within the metaverse? Since your job, a lot of your money, and a lot of your friends and time has been invested into this platform, maybe you even moved your own business into there. If you're expelled out of this virtual world, then you're losing a lot more than just your posts or just your friends. It becomes a higher stakes game than if you were banned off of Facebook, which is already pretty problematic. So an example, Donald Trump. He was the president of the United States still when he got banned off of basically all platforms. What would have happened if he had money or investments within those platforms? What would happen if a lot of his user base and a lot of his people were in that platform? You might love or hate the guy, but it becomes much more intense and much more important when someone is banned off of this space. And Trump is big, but a lot of people get banned every day for sometimes nonsense reasons. No matter what your political leanings are, it is within their terms and conditions that they can remove you or ban you from the platform outright. What happens if you had to have a very important conversation with someone in the metaverse that you can't contact outside of it because you don't have their information other than their username and avatar within the metaverse? There's already a worrying trend that governments and institutions are having and pushing for, which is to move your identity into a digital one. Basically a digital ID. There's already examples of it happening in Canada. On February 21st, Air Canada announced that they're going to start using facial recognition software. Digital identification using facial recognition technology can now be used to board select flights from Vancouver to Winnipeg and to access its cafe at Toronto Pearson International Airport. And of course, Canada's Transport Minister, Omar Algraba, is very happy with this new development. He is one of the ministers that pushed for banks to block money and accounts from people that protested during the truckers' convoy last year. So if that's not an indication of something more sinister to come, I don't know what is. And of course, one of the ways all of these kinds of moves are usually advertised are through security and convenience, and it'll be easier for you in the long run. But deep down, we know that's not true. And if you don't know that, then please keep watching. There is a bigger project going on with Canada and the World Economic Forum. At the moment, it has been paused, but it is definitely coming. This same minister, Omar Agrabah, is also pushing for the World Economic Forum's known traveler digital identity, which basically expands upon the digital ID program. And we know where digital IDs lead. For example, in China, digital ID is used to connect you and your whole identity and your whole existence into your social credit score. So since Facebook has to have some way of identifying you, at least internally, a digital ID would be a very easy and convenient way to make sure you are you and that you're not impersonating someone else, because within the metaverse, it can lead to more dangerous consequences if you step into someone's meeting, or if you're teaching children, or if you're doing anything that requires a minimum level of security. They will tout digital ID as a great idea to merge your physical being with your digital existence. This wouldn't just connect your private information out in the real world into the metaverse, but it would allow Facebook to really know who you are. So when they need to ban you, they're not just banning a user, they're banning the actual person. And we still don't know how much of this private information Facebook will be able to retain from having your digital ID. Even though we might have suspected it and were pretty much on the money at the time, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, a lot of things came out about just how connected governments and social media platforms are. Not just social media platforms, but basically all big tech giants. It's something that a lot of us already suspected, but being able to see it pulled out in the Twitter files with textual examples of how and what they were doing brought it all into the light and made it a lot more real. For example, during the Hunter Biden laptop kerfuffle, it came out that there were a lot of FBI and ex-FBI employees either working with Twitter or working at Twitter. Michael Schellenberger says that as of 2020, there were so many former FBI employees, BU alumni, working at Twitter that they had created their own private Slack channel and a crypt sheet to onboard new FBI arrivals. This not only shows but confirms that there is government involved within all of these big tech platforms, even if we don't like to think about it too much. It is now imperative for us to start realizing just how connected big tech and government are and how much more connected they could become in the metaverse, since having all of their citizens and all of their users in the same space for so long gives ample opportunity for further control, for further coercion, or for just nefarious activities. And it's not just within the Twitter files that we have recently seen how big tech and government are basically almost one and the same, or at least very connected. On a not so distant Joe Rogan episode, Mark Zuckerberg himself, the owner of Meta platforms, decided to open up about FBI agents visiting him.
The Hunter Biden laptop story, the New York Post.
Yeah, we have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. Basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
And if he's willing to disclose this on a public platform, what else and what sort of other involvement have governments had with Facebook and Meta that we don't even know about? It's not just the fact that governments are involved with big tech platforms, but that they are able to both censor and dictate what these platforms allow their users to discuss, to post, to sell, or just to do. So if you're now living most of your day within the metaverse because you have work there since your company decided to, for example, stop paying for rental offices and just have every meeting in the metaverse and have a virtual office. And it entices you to stay there longer because there's all these things that in the real world you just can't have. So through its partnership with Microsoft and Microsoft Teams and the idea of building a work infrastructure within the platform, they've ensured that at least some people will be technically forced or coerced into using the metaverse. But it's not just work. There are now a bunch of churches, mega churches in the United States, that have also partnered with the metaverse to have sermons and pastors that can meet with virtually anyone in the world. And this is a good way to bring in people that wouldn't really be interested in it. If you can see your pastor and a sermon anytime, anywhere, that's pretty attractive for a crowd that wouldn't usually be at all interested in existing within a virtual reality. And younger people are already in the metaverse. I mean, 76% of Roblox's user base is under the age of 16, and they're spending a lot of time in there. And another way Meta can bring in more users is through subsidizing the glasses or goggles that you have to use to interact with the virtual spaces. Facebook, when it was Facebook, actually bought Oculus Rift, which is one of the bigger manufacturers of VR goggles, back in 2014 for $2 billion. This means that they've been planning this for quite a while, and they see all of this as a very worthy investment. Why? Because they're basically going to own you and your digital persona. In the metaverse, governments and Meta, the platform, are able to more easily surveil you and know what you're up to if everything you're doing is basically being recorded in perpetuity within the internet, and where anything you do or anything you say that Facebook, or more importantly the government, or more importantly an international organization thinks that is not beneficial or is wrong or that you should be silenced about, they'll more likely be able to easily take you out. And this will very well have repercussions in your real world. Since a lot of your personal information is linked or will be linked with the metaverse, and since digital ID is basically going to become a reality for all of us, when you get banned off of Facebook, this could have repercussions in the real world, in the sense of denial of services, for example. We already know that in China, if you say or do something wrong, you are not able to use a train or any mode of transportation. You might not be able to get into stores, or you might not even be able to go to a doctor. If people that dissented during the past 3 years on any of the governmental policies that were put through were in the metaverse, and they had their jobs in the metaverse, and they had other important aspects of their life linked to the metaverse, if Facebook bans them, either by the government's order or by their own decision, what happens to all those things? And what happens to these people that might now also be denied services in the real world? That might be you. We already know that a bunch of teenagers are losing, and especially during the pandemic, social skills from being and playing these games like World of Warcraft and Roblox and Minecraft for hours on end. You end up forgetting what a real person's face looks like, and it doesn't matter how realistic meta platforms or another metaverse can make you look, it's not going to be you. And this leads me to the actual most concerning part of the metaverse. We've seen within the recent few months even that artificial intelligence is gaining traction. It's already been used for a multitude of things for years and years, but now it's becoming more friendly and more usable by the average user. ChatGPT, this artificial intelligence, if whoever makes the algorithm for this platform to answer back has a political bias, for example, or any other sort of bias, it will necessarily, even if they try not to, be ingrained within the chatbot. It's not only ChatGPT, for example, Midjourney, where you can create images with whatever you ask it to create, and they're very, very realistic, and it pretty much understands very well what you're asking it to do. There's also artificial intelligence voice. You can create or recreate someone's voice using artificial intelligence. And there's video that uses artificial intelligence to basically mimic whoever you want, and you can make them say or do whatever you want. These are already pretty eerie concepts. But what happens when artificial intelligence is applied within the metaverse? And people using it to trick others is not really my actual concern. My concern is the platforms themselves using artificial intelligence to sway you, coerce you, confuse you, or give you ideas that you're not even aware are being given to you by artificial intelligence. If you weren't aware, and if you hadn't seen what happened during the past 3 years, people are very susceptible to propaganda, be it from the government, be it from advertising, be it from anywhere it comes. We are fallible beings, and that is one of the things that really gets to us. Pair that with either a threat or fear, or maybe even rewards. We've recently seen what happens when propaganda is used through fear. But what happens when it's used through incentives, for example? So if you do something good that someone's asking you to do in the metaverse, you get rewarded either in the real life or in the metaverse. You could get new things for your avatar. I don't know, doing a good deed, whatever they think it is. What if this person is actually not a person at all, and it's programmed artificial intelligence that sounds and interacts with you like any other of the real avatars in this metaverse, but it's actually programmed to program you? If by now you're thinking, why should I care? I'm never going in there. You might think that, but what if you have to have a meeting in there? Your boss one day comes up and says, no, our meeting is actually going to be in the metaverse because we paired up with Teams. What happens when a friend that lives far away convinces you to just get on the metaverse because it's easier and it feels like real life? It's like I'm almost there. Or what if you have an appointment, be it with a doctor or to get your passport or to get your license, and they say, oh, we do that through the metaverse now. Or if you have to pay a bill and they say, oh, you can do that through the metaverse. You could also get incentivized through free goggles to get into the metaverse. Just as many of us, you probably said, I'm never going on Facebook. That's stupid. That's for children. Or I'm never using Instagram. What would I post photos for all day? But now you use it probably most of the time. And it's not just that it's a social media platform that you will want to be in, but again, that you might have to be in, either for a job or a service, or to communicate with a loved one that only wants to do it through the metaverse. It might seem easy to think right now that you can escape it. You don't have to be in there. It's only for certain kinds of people. But as we've seen with other things in our lives that have become digitalized or translated into the virtual space, imagining that one day you will have to be in there is not so difficult. And once you're in there, it will be very hard to leave. Not only because your money and some assets and your friends and your job and your services and your shopping all happens within the metaverse, but because entities don't want you to leave. By using the security and convenience of being in the metaverse, having a lot of your life happening in the metaverse, it's easy to convince you to stay in there. Even if once you didn't want to be in the metaverse, you'll be forced, even if you don't realize it, to stay in there. For people that have a hard time interacting with the real world, and as we've seen with teenagers and younger people, they mostly prefer to live online. What happens to those people when everything they could ever wish for, they could be the gender they want, they could be as rich as they want, look however they want, pretend to be whoever they want? How do you convince someone to leave this platform that grants all their wishes? In the end, how do you convince yourself? And how do you escape the grips of digitalization and the push to become even more ingrained with your digital identity? You might think you have an easy way right now to not adopt it. You don't need it. But entities will make sure you need it. Governments, big tech, they're all benefiting from you working and living and breathing in the metaverse. And as we've seen, it is very easy to convince about 90% of the Canadian population to do something that maybe at first they didn't want to do, or that they weren't convinced about, or that they weren't sure about. What I'm trying to say is that there is no escaping it. If you can escape the metaverse for some reason, you won't be able to escape digital ID, because health services will be tied to it. What if you need to see a doctor and you can't leave the country to see someone elsewhere? What if you need a service that is only granted to you if you use your digital ID? And banking. What happens when they move the currency to a central bank digital currency? Then they can monitor how and what you spend, how much you've spent and why, and on what things. What if there's a carbon tax on meat and you can only buy so much meat per week? Your card will be declined at the checkout and you won't be able to purchase what you wanted to buy.
Today, I'm proud to say that under the UK's presidency, the group of the world's 7 most advanced economies, the G7, is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote that could be used alongside physical notes and coins. Unlike most of the digital money people use daily today, it would be issued directly by a central bank, like the Bank of England in the UK. And governments and central banks across the world are working together, looking into what having a digital currency might mean in practice. This includes issues that people care about, such as ensuring users' money would be safe and secure, that it could work with other ways to pay, would be energy efficient and available to everyone.
What if you do something that the government disagrees with, like protests? It won't just be your one bank that denies you service. It will be every bank, and you won't be able to have that money back. It is a lot easier to imprison people if you don't physically have to imprison them. If you can deny every service, if you can deny every opportunity to them because they don't adopt what you want them to, then you've got them in the palm of your hand. Even if you agree with Facebook or Meta's censorship right now, what happens when things change? What happens when the general public opinion sways the other way? When what you once thought was the right thing to say or the right thing to do or the right thing to post now becomes a bannable offense. You won't just be banned off of Facebook, you'll be banned off of your lifeline to the digital world, and maybe even your lifeline to the outside world. The more and more aspects of our real life get translated into the digital version, the more we are able to be silenced and censored and controlled and surveilled. Again, you might not even care because you agree with all of it at the moment. But once all of these things are set into place, once all of this has been digitalized, when another kind of government comes in or another owner of the platform, then what happens when all your things, all your stuff, your whole life is in there? And now you don't agree with what they're censoring. And now you might be censored as well. It's easy when things you agree with are happening to people you disagree with. But soon, it might be you that everyone else is disagreeing with. Even though you know and you are sure you're right, even though what you're saying might not be so controversial, or so you think. If you care about free speech, or at least if you care about being able to say what you think and what you believe and what you know is right, the fact that we're giving over so much control of our thoughts, of our lives, of our speech to others makes it easy to lose all those freedoms. Most people are not concerned with free speech when theirs isn't being silenced. But the minute when it is you having things taken away from you, getting banned, losing money, losing your livelihood, then you will care. And by then, you'll already be losing it. This might all seem unlikely to happen, but if we look at the blueprint, if we look at big tech, if we look at the encroaching digitalization and where that has been leading to, then it's at least something you might want to think about. If you got to the end, thank you for watching. And if I did, I'm sorry to scare you. But again, I do think it's important. Well, I think I got most of it out there.